Hi, you guys. It's Amy with myths and legends from all over the world. So, today we're going to give you another story from Egypt, and the story's name is The Girl with the Rose Red Slippers. Now, you'll notice in this story there are a lot of names that I cannot pronounce. Really, really difficult. A lot of Greek names, a lot of Roman names, and of course from Egypt. So I try my best. I hope they are okay. So, as always, please go ahead and write down the listening questions. Number one, why were the Greeks allowed to live in Egypt? The Greeks were people from Greece. Number two, when Charaxos goes to the marketplace, what does he buy there? Number three, what does Charaxos discover about Rhodopis? Number four, how does Charaxos feel about Rhodopis? Number five, when Rhodopis was bathing, what happened to one of her rose red slippers? Number six, what decree does the Pharaoh issue? And number seven, in the end, what happens to Rhodopis? Okay? I'll see you soon. Here's the vocabulary. Go ahead and write down any of the words that you don't know. Conquered, to take possession of by force. The army conquered their enemy and took the castle as their own. Poetess, a female poet. The great poetess is honored at the National Museum of Literature. Slave, someone who is owned. A long time ago, African slaves were shipped from Africa to the U.S. in order to work in the fields. Blush, to turn red. The young girl blushed when she saw such a handsome man. Bid, to propose an amount that you are willing to spend. I don't have a lot of money, so I can only bid $50 for that item. Pirate, someone who robs at sea. The evil pirate captured the ship and took all of its treasure. Fable, a short moral story, usually with animals or mythical creatures. This fable tells the story of a god who turned into a tree. Master, the person who owns a slave. The slave's masters were usually very cruel to them. Besotted, unreasonably fond of. I told her that he was a bad boyfriend, but she is still besotted with him. Present, to give formally. During the graduation ceremony, the principal will present his students with their diploma. Spoil, to treat with excessive indulgence. The mother spoiled her daughter so much that the girl annoys all of her teachers. Marble, a hard rock used in sculpture and building material. Our kitchen counter is made of Italian marble. Girdle, a band of material around the waist that strengthens a skirt or pants. A woman's girdle keeps her skirt in place. Shriek, a high-pitched cry or scream. The girl shrieked loudly when she saw the mouse. Startled, surprised and alarmed. The young man was startled at the sight of his boss waiting to speak with him. Swoop, to move down to attack. The dragon swooped down and caught the lamb in its mouth. Talon, sharp claw, usually with birds. The bird's talon scratched my arm. Soar, to fly high in the sky. Using their powerful wings, eagles can soar quickly in the air. Weep, to cry a lot. I wept when I saw that my dog was dead. Palace, the house of the king. The king's palace is beautiful and large. Lap, the upper thighs of a seated person. My dog loves to sleep right in my lap. Moved, affected by something emotionally. She was moved by the child's sad story. Decree, an official command, usually given by someone powerful. For some religions, it is decreed that pork must not be eaten. Go forth, to go away from a place. After they reach 18 years old, children must go forth and live independently. Declare, to say firmly that something is true. I declare my love for you. Prostrate, to throw oneself flat on the ground. You can show your thankfulness by lying prostrate on the ground in front of me. Obey, to be obedient to. I must teach my dog to obey my commands. Disobey, to not obey. You must never disobey me. In the last days of ancient Egypt, not many years before the country was conquered by the Persians, it was ruled by a pharaoh called Amasis. So as to strengthen his country against the threat of invasion by Persia, who was conquering all the known world, he welcomed as many Greeks as wished to trade with or settle in Egypt, and gave them a city called Naucratis to be entirely their own. In Naucratis, not far from the mouth of the Nile that flows into the sea at Canopus, there lived a wealthy Greek merchant called Charaxos. His true home was in the island of Lesbos, and the famous poetess Sappho was his sister. But he had spent most of his life trading with Egypt, and in his old age he settled at Naucratis. One day, when he was walking in the marketplace, he saw a great crowd gathered round the place where the slaves were sold. Out of curiosity, he pushed his way into their midst, and found that everyone was looking at a beautiful girl who had just been set up on the stone rostrum to be sold. She was obviously a Greek, with white skin and cheeks like blushing roses, and Charaxos caught his breath, for he had never seen anyone so lovely. Consequently, when the bidding began, Charaxos was determined to buy her, and, being one of the wealthiest merchants in all of Naucratis, he did so without much difficulty. When he had bought the girl, he discovered that her name was Rhodopis, and that she had been carried away by pirates from her home in the north of Greece when she was a child. They had sold her to a rich man who employed many slaves on the island of Samos, and she had grown up there, one of her fellow slaves being an ugly little man called Aesop, who was always kind to her and told her the most entrancing stories and fables about animals and birds and human beings. When she was grown up, her master wished to make some money out of so beautiful a girl, and had sent her to rich Naucratis to be sold. Charaxos listened to her tale and pitied her deeply. Indeed, very soon he became quite besotted with her. He gave her a lovely house to live in, with a garden in the middle of it, and slave girls to attend on her. He presented her with presents of jewels and beautiful clothes, and spoiled her as if she had been his own daughter. One day a strange thing happened as Rhodopis was bathing in the marble-edged pool in her secret garden. The slave girls were holding her clothes and guarding her jeweled girdle and her rose-red slippers, of which she was particularly proud, while she lazed in the cool water. For a summer's day, even in the north of Egypt, grows very hot about noon. Suddenly, when all seemed quiet and peaceful, an eagle came swooping down out of the clear blue sky, down, straight down, as if to attack the little group by the pool. The slave girls dropped everything they were holding and fled, shrieking, to hide among the trees and flowers of the garden, and Rhodopis rose from the water and stood with her back against the marble fountain at one end of it, gazing with wide, startled eyes. Instead, it swooped right down and picked up one of her rose-red slippers in its talons. Then it soared up into the air again on its great wings and, still carrying the slipper, flew away to the south over the valley of the Nile. Rhodopis wept at the loss of her rose-red slipper, feeling sure that she would never see it again, and sorry also to have lost anything that Charaxos had given her. But the eagle seemed to have been sent by the gods, perhaps by Horus himself, whose sacred bird he was. He flew straight up the Nile to Memphis and then swooped down towards the palace. At that hour Pharaoh Amasis sat in the great courtyard, doing justice to his people and hearing any complaints that they wished to bring. Down over the courtyard swooped the eagle and dropped the rose-red slipper of Rhodopis into Pharaoh's lap. The people cried out in surprise when they saw this, and Amasis too was much taken aback. But as he took up the little rose-red slipper and admired the delicate workmanship and the tiny size of it, he felt that the girl for whose foot it was made must indeed be one of the loveliest in the world. Indeed, Amasis the Pharaoh was so moved by what had happened that he issued a decree. Let my messengers go forth through all the cities of the Delta, and, if need be, into Upper Egypt, to the very borders of my kingdom. Let them take this rose-red slipper, which the divine bird of Horus has brought to me, and let them declare that whoever this slipper belongs to shall be the bride of Pharaoh. Then the messengers prostrated themselves, crying, Life, health, strength be to Pharaoh. Pharaoh has spoken, and his command shall be obeyed. So they set forth from Memphis and went by way of Heliopolis and Tanis and Canopus until they came to Naucratis. Here they heard of the rich merchant Charaxos, and of how he had bought the beautiful Greek girl in the slave market, and how he was lavishing all his wealth upon her, as if she had been a princess put in his care by the gods. So they went to the great house beside the Nile, and found Rhodopis in the quiet garden beside the pool. When they showed her the rose-red slipper, she cried out in surprise that it was hers. She held out her foot so that they could see how well it fitted her, and she bade one of the slave girls fetch the pair to it which she kept carefully in memory of her strange adventure with the eagle. Then the messengers knew that this was the girl whom Pharaoh had sent them to find, and they knelt before her and said, The good God Pharaoh Amasis, life, health, strength be to him, bids you come with all speed to his palace at Memphis. There you shall be treated with all honor and given a high place in his royal house of women, for he believes that Horus, the son of Isis and Osiris, sent that eagle to bring the rose-red slipper and cause him to search for you. Such a command could not be disobeyed. Rhodopis bade farewell to Charaxos, who was torn between joy at her good fortune and sorrow at his loss, and set out for Memphis. And when Amasis saw her beauty, he was sure that the gods had sent her to him. He did not merely take her into his royal house of women, he made her his queen and the royal lady of Egypt, and they lived happily together for the rest of their lives. Okay, so here are the listening answers. Let's see how many you got. Number 1, why were the Greeks allowed to live in Egypt? The answer is the Egyptian pharaoh Amasis wanted the Greeks in Egypt so that they could protect Egypt from the Persians. Basically, everyone was trying to conquer each other. In that place. It's a very dangerous time to live. So they used the Greeks so that they would have a bit more people who would protect them from invading civilizations. Number 2, when Charaxos goes to the marketplace, what does he buy there? Yes, he does not buy like a box of apples, maybe a tunic. No, he buys a woman. So, this guy sees a slave trade and buys a beautiful slave girl named Rhodopis. I hope I'm saying her name correctly. Maybe it's Rhodopis? I'm not sure. Anyway, Rhodopis. Number 3, what does Charaxos discover about Rhodopis? The answer is he discovers that she was taken by pirates as a child and sold to a rich man. and eventually her master wanted to make a profit from her, so she was sold again. Yeah, this character Rhodope, she's had a really long childhood, and I think her story is kind of interesting and kind of sad at the same time. Yeah. But she has a happy ending, so it's good, yeah. All right, so number 4, how does Charaxos feel about Rhodopis? He is besotted with her. Remember, besotted is our vocabulary word. He loves her so much. He gives her lots of gifts and had other slave girls to help her. Number 5, when Rhodopis was bathing, what happened to one of her rose red slippers? So the answer is when she was bathing, an eagle came and stole one of her slippers. So basically, this big bird comes out from the sky and just grabs the slipper and then goes back to the king's palace. So the eagle flew to the palace and dropped the slipper into the pharaoh's lap. Number 6, what decree does the pharaoh issue? He issues a decree saying that whichever girl is the owner of that slipper would be his bride. Sounds familiar? It's just like Cinderella, right? It's just a bit different because now we have a slave girl slash prostitute. Very different story, but the idea is the same. And last one, number 7, in the end, what happens to Rhodopis? She is taken to the pharaoh, and he thinks that she is so beautiful that he decides to make her his queen. So in the end, she gets to live with the pharaoh. So it's a cute story in the end. Kind of strange, though. All right, now we just have the pronunciation to do. All right, here are your pronunciation sentences. Number 1, just listen. Charaxos caught his breath, for he had never seen anyone so lovely. Okay, so there are a couple of words that I want you to be careful about. Number 1, caught, caught. You'll notice I don't say the T sound. I don't say caught. When we speak very quickly, we take the T out, so it's just caught, caught. Okay? And of course, I always tell you it's not for, it's fur, fur. And last one, seen, seen. Don't forget the N. And this is especially important when you have two words that are together. For example, in this sentence, seen anyone, seen anyone. It almost sounds like one word, so you really have to emphasize the N sound, seen anyone. Okay? Listen one more time and then I want you to repeat. Charaxos caught his breath, for he had never seen anyone so lovely. Number 2, just listen. Charaxos listened to her tale and pitied her deeply. Okay? 2 words. The first word is tail, tail. Be careful of the A sound. It's very long, okay? Tail. All right? And the second word is pitied. Pitied. So it's not a T sound. It's a D sound. It's a D sound. So we say pitied. Okay? Listen again, and then I want you to repeat. Charaxos listened to her tale and pitied her deeply. Okay? Number 3, just listen. An eagle came swooping down out of the clear blue sky. All right, 2 parts. The first one is the word came, came. Make sure that A is very long. I know with the M and the N sounds, it's very difficult to keep a strong A, but I really want you to open your mouth, make it really wide, came, came. All right, and the second part of this sentence is out of. We don't say out of, we say out of. Out of. So the T becomes a D and it becomes almost like one word. You put it together. Out of. Out of. Okay? Listen and repeat. An eagle came swooping down out of the clear blue sky. Number 4, listen. Rhodopis wept at the loss of her rose red slipper. Okay, only one word here, but it's really important, and it's wept. I know it's really hard, the P and the T together. So let's do it slowly. Wept, wept. Okay? And like normal, wept, wept. Okay, now let's do the whole sentence. Listen and repeat. Rhodope's wept at the loss of her rose-red slipper. Okay, last sentence, number 5. Listen. Such a command could not be disobeyed. Okay, so you have 2 parts. The first one is such a, such a. It's almost like one word. You put it together, such a. Okay? And then command, command. So the second syllable, mand, is emphasized, okay? Command, command. All right, listen and repeat the whole sentence. Such a command could not be disobeyed. Okay? I hope you enjoyed this story, and of course, we will have more stories for you to listen to. Goodbye, everyone.